Okay, we'll start our regular school board meeting for Duluth Public Schools. It's Tuesday, October 20th, 2015. It is 6:30, and so we'll begin. Could I have Member Leffler-Kemp, would you call roll, please?
Yes. Member Harla? Here. Member Johnston? Member Murneke?
Here.
Member Chair Judy Saliga-Punko?
Here.
Member Welty?
Here.
Member Westholm? Here. Superintendent Grunset?
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Amy Stozecki? Deputy Clerk Bill Hansen? Here. Secretary Melinda Thibault? Student reps Member Goosens? Here. And Member Olafson. Here. Thank you.
Quorum. Thank you, Member Leffler-Kemp. Will everyone please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are going to move on to approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion, please? Okay, that's been moved by Member Westholm and seconded by Member Welty. Got that? Okay, is there any discussion? Member Johnston?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. I move to amend the agenda by adding the following revision to Policy 2015, Superintendent Functions to the Business Committee. I'll read to you the important part, which is added Section 18 to that. And here is a copy of that to the Chair, please. Number 18 will be another duty the superintendent would be to inform and provide copies to all school board members of any legal suits filed by or against the school district, attorney correspondences to and from the school district, offers to purchase or distribute school property, petitions and correspondences received by the school district from district residents, information requested by the school board members, information requests received by the school district.
Okay, this amendment has been moved by Member Johnston, seconded by Member Welty. Is there any discussion? Member Johnston.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm submitting this for two reasons. First of all, I think it's time that school board members are allowed to add agenda items to our meetings. This has not been happening in the past. I submitted this, I think, 2 months ago. Wasn't added. I submitted it again, wasn't even responded to. Also, another reason for submitting this is very important is that I have made now 10 data requests to the superintendent. The superintendent is a person in charge of Data Practice Act requests in our district. I've received responses back from 3 of those. They've been impartial. I haven't even had an acknowledgement to the other 7. And there's been many other things like offers to purchase buildings, petitions received from residents and whatnot. Therefore, I think it's very important that we as a school board amend our policy so that won't continue to happen. So I'm hoping that the board will vote this. We know it takes a unanimous vote to get this added to the agenda, but I think it's very important.
Member Harla.
Chair, could you remind us, I think we spoke about this in the spring. Can you remind me which month that we did look at this, and this should have been brought up at that time? So I know that this has been asked and answered, and so can you remind me?
It was, and I think, I know I sent an email out in response to that, that we voted as a board, I think it was February, I know I sent it in the email, that we are going to be looking at policies following the MSBA. And so we're taking part of them at a time, and this is not something that MSBA has a model of, and it's not even something that we're at that point yet. We're starting at, I can't remember what the curriculum, I think, is the 6,000s. We're starting at those. So those are the policies that we're looking at changing right now. Member Welty.
Thank you, Chair Saliga-Punko. I think there are 2 issues here. As to the question of doing the MSBA policies, yes, we have had a significant conversation about that, trying to bring our 100 years worth of policies closer into alignment with some more rational school board policies that reflect needs of Minnesota school boards across the state. We have talked about that. As to the particular policy that Member Johnston has raised, it has to do with the kinds of critical information that the city council or a school board or a county board should know, and just simply directs administration to make sure that we understand those. I think it is an entirely rational policy. We could tweak it, we could alter it, but I think having a discussion about it would be useful, whether it fits into the MSBA policy. But perhaps more importantly, what Member Johnson pointed out is that while we had a conversation in the past year and a half about how school board members in a minority are able to bring forward subjects to be discussed, this still is not possible, and as Member Johnston pointed out, he's appealed to the chair to put this on an agenda so that we could discuss it, and we still find ourselves frozen out of even the chance to discuss what I think is a very rational policy. And so, of course, I had no difficulty seconding this because I think we should have a chance to bring policies or other topics to the agenda, even though we may be in an unfavored minority.
Member Johnston.
I'd like to correct the chair. Again, first of all, she did not respond to me, a generic thing that we're doing our policies therefore with an insinuation that this wouldn't be done. I'd like to point out to the board that this month we have policy 6140.10, which is co-curricular activities, which the board supports. That is one of our policies. It's not an MSBA policy. We're changing that. I'd also like to point out policy 4180. That is one of ours. It's Workle. That is an MSBA policy. I'd like to point out back in July we passed policy 5090, which was on cell phones, exclusively our policy. We also passed in June policy 5084 on bullying, which was almost exclusively our policy based on Minnesota state law. We passed policy 8050, which is a code of ethics, which was not the MSBA policy. We passed policy 4015, which is exclusively our policy. So when the chair says that this wasn't appropriate or we didn't pass this on because we're having our policies being revised, we have passed 4 policies in the last 2 months exclusively dealing with our exclusive policies, and this is no different.
Member Harla. Oops.
This has been asked and answered, so I'm going to call the question on the amendment.
Thank you. I need a second for that. Seconded by Member Murneke. Okay, all in favor of calling the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, that carries 6-1. 5-2. Okay, we are going to vote on Member Johnston's resolution or amendment. We're going to vote on that. All in favor of changing the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, that fails 2-5. Okay, we're going to move on to approval of the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes 6-1. Okay, let's move on to reading and approval of the minutes. The minutes of the special school board meeting of Thursday, September 17th, 2015. Could I have a motion to approve? Moved by Member Murneke, seconded by Member Westholm. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the approval of the minutes of the special school board meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. And then we have the regular school board meeting of September 22nd. Could I have a motion to approve, please? Moved by Member Leffler-Kemp. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Westholm. Any discussion? Member Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I have a discussion on page 2 under public comments. has to do with Marcy Stromgren. She made a statement to the board and she was cut off by the chair. I think it's very important for the board to realize that the public has a right to express an opinion. It was an opinion. Her opinion was that the superintendent should resign. Well, we may not agree with that opinion. It is her opinion. It was not a derogatory comment. It was simply that the superintendent should resign. I'd like to also suggest that the board should be more consistent. I think that when you want to tell people that they're out of order is when they are alleged inappropriate behavior such as accusing someone of assault, conflict of interest, racism, or insulting school board members' family. None of those were ever addressed at all by the chair. That's pointing out here that I'd like to have some consistency in the chair, and this is not that, and I'd certainly like to ask that the public do allowed to speak, also that the chair in the future stop insinuating insulting behavior, real insulting behavior, not somebody expressing an opinion.
We will maintain civility in this boardroom. Okay, all those in favor of minutes of the regular school board meeting say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously also. And then the last special school board meeting of executives closed session of October 12th, 2015. Could I have a motion to approve? So moved by member Westholm. Is there a second? Seconded by member Leffler-Kemp. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the special school board meeting say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously again. Now we have our school and community recognition. So Assistant Superintendent Starzicki, if you want to lead us in that. I think I have. Yeah. So. Think about it.
Good evening. Members of the board, this month I'm pleased to present Calvin Harris, Achievement Center Coordinator for ISD 709. Cal is the recipient of the 2015 20 Under 40 Leadership Award from the Duluth News Tribune. As Achievement Center Coordinator, Cal provides students with leadership training, goal setting, organizational skills, critical thinking skills, decision making, problem solving, and motivation skills. He is an active member in the community, serving as president of the Twin Ports African American Men's Group, founder of the African American Student Alliance, volunteer at Neighborhood Youth Services, and a member of Prince Hall Freemasonry and a member of the NAACP. Cal is also a co-founder of Guys with Ties, an after-school program at Lincoln Park Middle School emphasizing academics. Through his efforts, the group visited Lake Superior College to learn about degrees offered, met with legislators during the Day at the Hill hosted by the Council on Black Minnesotans, and met with the Deputy Undersecretary of the Navy for Policy and Senator Roger Reinhardt, among other activities. Through his work with our school district and the community, Cal is helping make a difference in the lives of the young people in Duluth. Thank you.
Thanks, Cal. It's very fun because I know I was there when the Guys with Ties were introduced to Representative Murphy, and also with the naval visitors. So very cool. Thank you. All right. We are moving on. Let's see, where did I put my... Okay. Member Leffler-Kemp, will you please read our vision statement, please? Go ahead.
Sure. Our community vision, which we have been reading this year at the beginning of each meeting, the purpose of Independent School District 709 is to provide a quality education that prepares all students for successful lives as global citizens in the home, community, and workplace. We will build on our shared beliefs and values of unity, high achievement, and responsible use of resources to create Duluth Public Schools and classrooms that are safe, supportive, and inclusive. We will work to inspire every student to achieve their potential and prepare students to lead productive, fulfilling lives as citizens of Duluth and the wider world.
Thank you, Member Leffler-Kemp, and just remember it's all about the students and our district. So we now move on to audience, and we have one speaker, Marcia Stromgren. Get ready to start.
Good evening, Board. Superintendent Gronseth. It's interesting to come here and film these meetings and listen to the double standards that are spewed forth. I see it at board committee meetings, and I see it here. The chair, in defense of some past position by this board, has stated we don't follow Robert's Rules of Order, but our board policies. Why is it that committee members came to the business committee meeting without the paperwork to be prepared? I'm an elected official. Under the Data Practices Act, you're supposed to have that out to them 3 days prior to a meeting so they can read through it and be prepared to talk about things at the meetings. I talked to 2 school board members. They didn't get their board packets, and the excuse was, well, there was a holiday. The holiday was on the day of the meeting. Excuse me? You're supposed to have it by Friday. Now, request to the Data Practices Act. You are covered in the Data Practices Act. When somebody asks for information, you are supposed to respond to them. Not 2, 3, 4 months or years down the road, but within a timely manner when they ask for it. We as taxpayers have a right to know how our dollars are spent. You can stonewall all you want. But you know something? Someday you're going to answer for every single one of these little board policy practices. You're cutting out 2 members of this board which have a right to have a say in what's going on. But you have to study what the whole state of Minnesota is doing, and yet you're an individual entity right here that can make these policies and include the minorities to be fair. Isn't that what over there on the 10 civil, one of the 10 civil statements are? You don't even follow that. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to reading communications and petitions and the report of the superintendent. So go ahead, Mr. Gronseth.
All right, I have no communications to report this month. But I'm glad to talk about the month of October being National Bullying Prevention Month. And while our district is always working to decrease bullying, this month there has been even more events and more effort made to bring awareness to this issue. Some examples, Lowell Elementary, the families and students covered the school sidewalks with messages of kindness in chalk. And if you were up there and saw them, it was pretty inspiring messages all over the sidewalk. It was great to see. And Duluth East students did the same. There are lots of messages written in chalk. And this evening, Climate Coordinator Ron Lake is partnering with St. Luke's, and they're providing a free presentation on bullying, what it is and what we can do about it. Our staff and students have been talking about bullying all month, talking about what bullying is, what we can do about it, how to respond to it. And our students are learning a lot but they're also involved, and they're creating their own events. And this Saturday is the Path to Peace Walk, and maybe Student Representative Goosens can add some details to that during his message. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday. And I encourage parents to continue having conversations at home, because sometimes students have a hard time starting that conversation, and all they need is an opening. And so I hope that parents and students can have some conversations over the dinner table or bedtime, whenever they're having those conversations, to make sure that we're addressing these issues when they come up. Also this month, it was International Walk to School Day. And several of our schools celebrated Walk to School Day. Students from Lincoln met in Wheeler Field and walked as a group up to the school. Congdon students met at Ordine East and walked together. And the Lester Park Wellness Council provided coffee to parents who walked to school with their students that day. And it's an international event. Over 40 countries celebrate and walk and bike to school on the same day. And there's lots of celebrations all around the world every October. And that's an event that we look forward to expanding in the future. And most of our schools held goal-setting conferences this month, met with families, and setting goals is really an important step. You know, if we don't know where we're headed, we're very likely to get there. Let that catch up. The next step is keeping those goals in mind as we move forward and checking on that progress. And teachers are continually checking our progress of students, but a reminder that families can do that as at home as well, by checking in with students on homework and making sure that they're looking at work that's coming home and checking in on some benchmarks on that goal as we move forward. What we know is that students who have engaged families have higher success levels. So we really encourage people to be involved in their children's school and to make sure that they're having conversations about what's going on at school at home. And with that, it is time for our student reports. I know that Student Representative Olafson was at a big soccer game last month and didn't get to report, so why don't we start with you this month?
Hello, everyone. Like Superintendent Gronseth said, I wasn't here last month, but the school year is getting off to a rocking and rolling start. Very fast, faster than some would like. But one of the biggest things to ever happen at Denfeld, at least since I've been there, happened in recent weeks, and that was the Minnesota State Supreme Court visited Denfeld. There was a case that they put forth. The lawyers were there to present their cases, and everything was taken into consideration. We did not get a verdict on the day, but just the fact that they were there was very exciting. 6 schools, not including Denfeld, so the entire Denfeld student body, as well as sections of Duluth East, Cloquet, Fond du Lac, Harbor City, Proctor, and Renshaw were all in attendance. It was a full house to watch the Supreme Court. Another thing that came to Denfeld was the Spirit program. This is a interpersonal contacts group that's working towards bettering relations between people in Denfeld, and this is kind of the first program of its kind. About 100 students participated. They had facilitators from every background you could expect, and it's growing with the days. Another thing that's happening at both Denfeld and East, I'm not sure if Jude is going to talk about this in his report, but that is Flexi Schedule, and this is our opportunity to choose during our win period what we want to do with our time. Each teacher in the school is choosing a different program they want to do. It could be everything from a study hall to getting help with your math homework to playing basketball in the gym, or simply maybe doing some artwork for a half-hour period a day. Sports seasons at Denfeld are closing. Our football team had their last game of playoffs about a week ago, as well as our boys and girls soccer teams. Our swim team is still going, and our cross-country team has sectionals in about a week. Our NHS induction is on November 5th, so that's soon coming. We had our first National Honor Society meeting today, and Junior Rotary is getting up and running. I am personally a Junior Rotarian for Club 25 of Duluth, and Harbor Town Rotary is getting their Junior Rotarians very soon. One last tidbit I have. As my grandmother was cleaning out her house this week, she found my great-grandfather's grammar school diploma from 1910, signed by Laura MacArthur and Robert E. Denfeld. So if you want to take a look at this on your way out, it'll be up here if you want to take a peek. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
And Student Representative Goosens?
Well, yeah, as Tommy said, with the flexi schedule, that's been a big new thing, and it's kind of a bit split among the student body as to how many people really love it and some people really, really hate it. But I'm on the crowd that is pretty optimistic as to the opportunities it can have the next coming months. So I'm excited about that. And he also mentioned the Minnesota Supreme Court, which was I was fortunate enough to be able to go to that with the different government and civics classes from East that were able to go to that, and that was a lot of fun. Other things happening at East, though, fall sports are wrapping up, as Tommy mentioned, with Denfeld as well. And then with Mr. Gonsa talking about how October is kind of like an anti-bullying month, and at East, October is East for Peace Month, and that's a part of the Pride campaign, tackling the subjects of peace, respect, integrity, diversity, and enthusiasm. So the entire month of October is full of events that are promoting peace within the school, and also have that anti-bullying component. And he mentioned the Path to Peace, which is this coming Saturday on October 24th at 2 p.m. at the Duluth Public Library, and that is an event that is open to anybody in the public, and I would definitely encourage everybody to go to that if they can, because that would be a great opportunity to just be involved in that activity and to just raise awareness of peace and anti-bullying in the community and in the schools and everything. So that's happening this Saturday, and then the next Saturday on the 31st, there's another event. There's a community fun run. It's a 3K run on the Lake Walk by East. Costumes are recommended but optional. There will be a costume contest, so if you want to break out some crazy costumes, you can do that. So that's open to everyone again, just like the Path to Peace. So if you're free on October 31st in the afternoon, I would definitely encourage you all to go to that. And he also mentioned the sidewalk chalk, which also happened at East, and that was a lot of fun to see that happen. And then other things, the ACT is happening on Saturday. Fortunately, I'm not taking that. I don't know if you are, Tommy, but I am very glad to be done with that. But a lot of people have been stressing about that, but also excited to get that over with. But yeah, just getting into school and just kind of in the thick of things now, and it's going well. So yeah.
And that's my report.
Thank you. It's always fun to hear what's happening in the schools. I appreciate it. Both of our student representatives, you do a great job with that. All right, we're going to move on now to the report of the standing committees, and I will start with Education Committee report. Member Harla, would you start us off? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the updates. I look forward to seeing that diploma. Student member Olafson. That seems really great. So thanks. Looking forward to hearing about that. So our Education Committee meeting last week was good. It began with a presentation from Rachel Johnson of the First Witness Child Advocacy Center. And I want to just highlight that our district has so many partnerships with community agencies, and we work really hard to bring community agencies in and for our schools to be out in the community. And so this was a highlight of a long-standing relationship with community organizations, teaching students about safe, they call it the Safe and Strong program, and it's developmentally appropriate and focuses on body safety to elementary students, an important and needed conversation that we have. And so they present in a number of our schools, and there's a renewed encouragement of their participation and presentations district-wide for K through 3, I'm sorry, the actual grade just slipped. K through 5, thank you. Excuse me. And so, they've served a number of our students and serve a number of people in the area, and really appreciate their involvement with our district, and also just this really important information. I wanted to highlight one thing that she noted was the most important thing, that as many adults in the room, and we are all advocates for children that sit at this table and that are in this community, that and if you can share this with 3 or 4 people around you, it could get around a lot. If a student were to ever identify that they had been touched improperly, one of the most important things for an adult to do is to not overreact or get really upset. And so First Witness offers many training programs on how to respond, but that we're an open and listening and affirming place. And First Witness actually provides services if this were to be and if this does get reported, we have a partnership with them in our district. And so just as adults, it's important for us to know that, and to provide safe spaces for our students to be in the case of emergency or in a tough time. So a very large thank you to First Witness for their community involvement. And it's been they said that it's, I remember going through this when I was in school growing up, and it was this curriculum. So it used to be with a different organization, has been with First Witness for the last number of years. The next piece that was a good overview from Mike Myers, our mental health coordinator, and Ron Lake, our climate coordinator on mental health. There's been a lot of discussions about this, and really important topic that has been big in our community. And mental health has a really negative stigma, and it's good to see a lot of more conversations around access to mental health resources in our community. And what they talked about with us were what is actually available in our school system for our students. And was encouraged by what they had to say, and spoke a lot about there are 3 tiers that we have for our students, that if whether they're really struggling or just some initial interventions, from things like making sure kids have access to food and active opportunities that lead to mental health, but also safe relationships in schools, our early childhood programs, all those pieces in supporting the overall health and wellness of a child. And they showed a great video at the beginning that talked about really helping out to look at there's all different places. Mental health isn't from a right to left. It's kind of all-encompassing, and any of us could be at any point in our mental health journey through our lives, throughout a day. And what our school does is try to provide safe environments and healthy environments for students to feel safe and comfortable. And when a student does need resources, that we're identifying and are better communicating what those resources are. And so we did have an opportunity to receive a list, and members, I hope you saw in your email today that they did follow up with the community mental health providers and partnerships by site. And so would encourage members of the board to look at that. And I was glad to see that we have connections both for internal referrals and external referrals in our district. And again, that's another strong community partnership that we have of providing wraparound services to our students in this day and age. So thank you very much to Mike Myers and to Ron Lake for that. The next presentation was from early childhood to kindergarten transition and our alignment presentation. Appreciated a presentation from Pam Reese and from Jay Ressler. I want to highlight that that early childhood interventions is an evidence-based way that is one of the many interventions that we have in our district of addressing, especially with our Head Start program, looking at addressing our achievement gap. It's also an important way that we introduce families to our schools and so families can build relationship. And so again, our district can be thankful that we have Head Start in the schools and that we have that strong partnership where families are building relationship and getting to know our community. And so a thank you to Pam Reese and Jay Ressler. We did, through some legislative funding, receive some additional dollars in the coming year. And so we appreciate that investment from the state and look forward to seeing their plan. And I know that there are a few grants that they've submitted to, so I'm sure that we'll hear more in coming months. Pam and Jay both do a great job of making sure that we're in the loop of this, but want to highlight that this is another resource that we have in our schools that provides some necessary relationship building for younger parents, for parents with younger children, and community members. In section B, we have some grant applications. One is Brenda Vathauer and Stephanie Heilig, principals at Myers-Wilkins and at Lincoln Park are submitting a grant to the Minnesota Department of Education for full-service community schools. This is an issue that's really close to my heart. Really, our community schools model really provides, again, wraparound services, bringing community members into the schools into the community, and providing partnerships so that families have a home base at their school, and provides a lot of enrichment and out-of-school time programming through partnerships with our community. And so really looking district-wide at having a pipeline for what we hear from families that have really been involved with the Myers-Wilkins Community Schools Collaborative is that they advance to the next year, especially to Lincoln Park, don't have those same services. And so I do hope one day that this is able to happen in each of our schools. And one of the highlight that we have just with our number of schools is that many of our schools already have strong relationships with community partners. And we see what happens with Pheasants Forever out at Lester Park Elementary School where they built the trail, or we see what happens in the Stowe neighborhood, in Morgan Park, in Gary, with the neighborhood youth center, with the youth center that's been built right there. All of those different social and pieces of community that are built around our schools help to support the health of that community, which then can really help our students. So community schools models in any way that we can be partnering in our community is important, and this is a formal grant application to enhance that at a junior high level from Myers-Wilkins to Lincoln Park, but with a vision to have it grow for many years. Number 2 was the Ordine Foundation and our grant application. Deidre Quinlan, the Habitat Coordinator, applied for a grant. They would be used to support our Habitat program, another important program in our school district, supporting our students. Number 2 are action items. One is data sharing agreements with Luther College. Chair, would you like me to just read through this? Or it'll just move it with the agenda?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So, it is recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve the above item. And then Resolution E-10-15-3303, acceptance of grant awards to the Duluth Public Schools. We received a number of grant applications: the State of Minnesota Head Start, Essentia Health Corporate Contributions for Habitat, Northland Foundation for the Washington Family Center, Northland Foundation to Congdon Park, 3 from the Northland Foundation district-wide. It's Northland Foundation funding season. Thank you, Northland Foundation, and these other pieces. Also, the State of Minnesota Head Start, Essentia, they're written twice. Essentia Corporate Contributions Habitat, St. Louis County district-wide, and the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for East. So it is recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve Resolution E-10-15-3303, acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Member Leffler-Kemp. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, Member Harla, if you would continue.
Thank you. The next is the second reading of Policy 6140.10, the co-curricular activity participation fees. This was updated to reflect lacrosse being added as a sport in our school district, and a reminder that as they add on being a sport, these fees go directly to offset some of the costs that the families and the sport has in the coming years, because they're paying a lot more as they get integrated. So that is an update to that policy. So it is recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve Policy 6140.10, co-curricular activities participation fees for the second reading. The next item, Policy 6111, homeschooling, was tabled for a future meeting. There needed to be additional research and information done into this, and so look forward to having that at a future meeting, and that we were measured in our response and how we looked into this. Thank you very much for highlighting that, Assistant Superintendent Starzecki. And the next pieces are diploma requests for Samantha A. Inman, Anna K. Campbell, Deja Weishart, Joshua D. Vandell, and Hannah Sue Hooley. So it is recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve the above diploma requests. And then we have some extended field trip requests. These look like fun. Sometimes I wish they needed chaperones. So the 5th grade students from Myers-Wilkins will be traveling to Deep Portage in February and are looking for approval for that. The 11th and 12th grade Health Occupation Students of America, HOSA students, a conglomeration of students from both East and Denfeld are a part of this, and they'll be going to the Minnesota HOSA Fall Conference in St. Paul. And then they also are looking for approval to go to the Minnesota Response Corps Camp and Workshop, which they take part in emergency preparedness lessons. So the public health in me just loves that. That's another organization that we don't, that provides a lot of hands-on opportunities, and students actually walk out of school with a CNA license. And so that's really, vocational opportunities for our students, and another example of ways that we are preparing our students for the future. So, those HOSA groups really work hard, and hope they enjoy their trip. And then the Business Professionals of America in grades 9 through 12 from Denfeld and East will be going to the BPA Fall Leadership Training, another opportunity looking at lifelong skills. Business Professionals of America, many opportunities for students to get involved. And then our Duluth Public Schools Indian Education students will be traveling to the 2015 Minnesota Indian Education Association conference at Shooting Star Casino and Hotel in Mahnomen, Minnesota. Looks like a really fun time. They're going to be participating in things like the Ojibwe Quiz Bowl and hand games, also attending the JIEA Youth Day at the Circle of Life School, where they'll participate in games, traditional activities, and teaching. So another way that we're looking at making sure that our students are grounded in cultures that they come from, and just very excited that our students can take part in many opportunities throughout the state. We do have a handful of future items for your consideration, but with that, Madam Chair, I move my report.
Thank you. That's been seconded by Member Leffler-Kemp. Is there any discussion on any items? Member Walty.
Yes, I'd like to withhold 1A2, mental health overview.
1A2. Anything else? Okay, go ahead, Member Walty.
I'll just preface this by saying what is frequently said. Education Chair Harla always does an excellent job explaining the discussions that took place during the Education Committee. She's done so again. And for those people who would like to understand where the meat and potatoes of the school district is, it really is the Education Committee. And the informational items gives us an opportunity to find out how those meat and potatoes are processed. And this one, I have just one very quick question about. I saw that in the green folder that gives us little additional things that we need to know. We have what is listed as a revised list of the mental health overview that Mike Myers and Ron Lake ran through. But I have to say, I just compared it with the one that's in the agenda, and I couldn't see any difference. Maybe somebody knows if there is a difference, or maybe the one in our official agenda was already revised from whatever we saw at the committee meeting. But Amy has a frightened look on her face. I don't mean to have you look through the whole thing. I could not see that there was a change from what we have in our revision here, and it's a long list at every school, the partnerships and providers we have. That's on page 9 in the one that we have here.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's in your green folder, because it is the same. I think that we got this in time to be included, and then it got included again.
So, okay, we're just crossing our T's twice. Okay, good.
Okay, is there anything else? Since there's no more discussion, let's vote on the entire Education Committee without the resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. All right, we're going to move on to the Human Resources Committee, and Member Murnicky, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I appreciate the fact that Ms. Tallarico gets the agendas out to us online for the public too, for all to see. It gives me a chance over the weekend to get ready for the meeting. We have a staffing report action item, certified appointments 17, certified deceased 1, certified permanent decrease 1, certified permanent increase 4, certified resignations 2, certified temporary increase 9, certified temporary decrease 2. Non-certified appointments, 17. Non-certified extension, 1. Non-certified leaves, 2. Non-certified permanent decrease, 2. Non-certified permanent increase, 4. Non-certified promotion, 1. Non-certified resignation, 3. Non-certified retirement, 2. Non-certified temporary increase, 4. And a temporary position, 1. Other action items, we have a placeholder for individual contract for Carrie Leiter, Property and Risk Management Manager, with the effective dates July 1st, 2012 through June 30th, 2015, and July 1st, 2015 through June 30th, 2017. It's an individual contract. We don't have to vote on this individually. We can vote on this as a whole. We do have to vote on the placeholder B, Education Directors Association Collective Bargaining Agreement, on page 4. And if it's all right with the chair, I'll read it. Resolution, Education Directors Association, resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, that the collective bargaining agreement between Independent School District 709 and the Education Directors Association, a summary of which is in the hands of all school board members, be approved and adopted for the period July 1st, 2013 to June 30th, 2015 inclusive, and that the chairperson and clerk of the school board be hereby authorized to execute said agreement on behalf of the school district. I move resolution number HR 10-15-3306. Second.
Okay, that's been moved by Member Murneke and seconded by Member Welty, right? Is there any discussion on that resolution? Member Harala.
I just wanted to thank Mr. Hansen for the breakout, and also know that many of the education directors attend many of these meetings and appreciate them for all of their hard work, and glad that we were able to come to an agreement.
Okay, no other discussion? All those in favor of resolution HR 10-15-3306, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, Member Murneke, if you would just go ahead and finish up.
Number 3, our superintendent's review we do every year. We have an instrument that we've used for years. It provides school board members opportunities to criticize and to praise the superintendent. I think it's a wide-ranging document. We did have a discussion on going to the Minnesota School Board Association convention this January, where they had a workshop on this. And when we all returned, I asked at the Human Resources meeting in March if anybody wanted to change the instrument, and there were no changes. So we're fairly satisfied with the superintendent's review. And Mr. Swirsky, would you give us a bit of a timeline on that, please?
I believe the superintendent will be giving his, this isn't the proper term, but State of the District address. That term has changed recently with the workforce and various things. But that will be in the November meeting. So shortly, right around the time of that meeting or in the month of November, we'll get that instrument out to everybody so we can compile the board members' information and have that review for the December board meeting.
Thank you. There are no future HR items. I move the Human Resources Committee report.
Second.
Thank you, Member Murneke, and it's been seconded by Member Harla. Is there any discussion on the remainder of the HR Committee report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the rest of the remainder of the Human Resources Committee report say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, now we move into the Business Committee report, and Member Westholm, go ahead.
Thank you. And the Business Committee report is fairly routine, but we've got a couple of interesting items on there. So we'll just run through what's on the agenda and the usual things. In item number 1, various financial reports. And the thing that may be brought up this time is this is our first WADM projections, which is 1F. And I'm not sure, may have some comments from our managers as to what all that means.
But that's probably the most interesting thing in number one. Number two, bids, RFPs, quotes, and there were, I don't think there were any to speak of this month. 3, policies and regulations. 4, contracts, change orders, and leases. We had 2 contracts, and one is for administrative services, and that's Delta Dental, which has been our dental carrier for a number of years. And it's recommended that we approve this agreement with Delta Dental for the period of 2016 through 2018. Number 2 is the contract with Mary Ann Marshall to provide mental health services for the 2015-16 school year. And one contract, as it says in our notes, is for $36,000 for services day head start. Second contract is $4,500 for ECFE first year program community education. And it's recommended that we approve these contracts. And number 3, a contract with Krista Harju, and in the amount of $36,000, and also to provide mental health services for the next for 2015-16 school year. And again, it's recommended that we approve this contract. And number 4 is an amendment to the agreement for district-wide refuse removal and recycling services, and this is not any big change in who's going to carry them, but it's simply a change in name. Nordic Waste Services is changing their name to Waste Management of Minnesota, and otherwise any other contract terms remain unchanged, and it's recommended that we approve this change. And change orders, we have some comment perhaps from our managers as to whether there are any. And resolutions, we have a couple of. The usual is 5A, B10 15 3303, acceptance of donations. A5B, resolution.
Member Westholm?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Can we let's go ahead and read the resolutions, and we'll go through each one of them individually.
Okay.
So if you would just read resolution B10 15 3303, and we can just, it's on page 38. And we can go through each one, those 3.
You don't have to read the whole thing.
Yeah, you don't have to read the whole thing. Just read which schools.
Well, I'd like to read the whole thing. No, I'm kidding. The resolution is whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in terms prescribed by the donor, and whereas acceptance of donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to the various organizations. And there are a number of donations, East High School, a number at Denfeld High School, and also Homecroft Elementary. And so that's our donations for this.
Go ahead and just read the number.
Okay, resolution B 10 15 3303.
Thank you. And that's been seconded by Member Murneke. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution B 10 15 3303, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. And Member Westholm, would you go to the next one on page
Okay,
39?
this is resolution 5B, B-10-15-1307, resolution entering into a joint powers agreement between ISD 709 and State of Minnesota Perpich Center for Arts Education, and it's recommended that we approve this resolution also.
Okay, that's been moved. Is seconded by Member Harla. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of resolution B 10-15-3307, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. And then the last one on page 46.
5C, B-10-15-3305, authorizing the sale of Rockridge Elementary School property. And that's on page 46. I don't know if we need to change to that or turn to that and take a look at it, but it's recommended that we approve this resolution also.
Okay, could I have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded by Member Murneke. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Seeing none, Member Welty?
Is the mention of the property at Rockridge the first mention that the public has heard of this at this time, or it is? Okay, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of Resolution B10? Oh, you want to say something? Sorry. Okay.
I did want to point out, as we discussed, that this is not the school building, but some of the adjacent properties of this school. So the resolution does say the sale of Rockridge Elementary School property, but it's not the school itself, it's the adjacent property.
Thank you, Superintendent Gronseth. Okay, all those in favor of Resolution B10-15-3305, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries unanimously. Okay, Member Westholm, if you just want to finish the business report.
Okay, and that brings us to item 6. These information is provided for informational purposes, no action required, various expenditure contracts, revenue contracts, and other contracts, and then various contracts that have been signed by the superintendent and Mr. Hanson. And that brings us to the end, aside from future items. And before we go, I was going to mention before I started, I was at the Supreme Court presentation at Denfeld, and it was really impressive. I mean, we had 1,300 students from a variety of schools, obviously, which really made it an interesting discussion. But the last 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, was reserved for questions from students. And students lined up. And I can tell you, I thought there's obviously some student lawyers in that group, because the questions that were asked were just outstanding. And it told me that, listening to court cases and having done some practicing and training in the legal field, it's not always easy to follow these things. But the students had obviously really listened. You could have heard a pin drop during most of it, and they really picked up on the intricacies of the case. And I was just so impressed with our students, and it really is a reflection of both our students and our staff, I guess. So I just wanted to offer that. That's outside of all of this, but anyway, I guess I move the business committee agenda.
Second. Okay, thank you, Member Westholm, and we'll have the second go to Member Harla. I think she got her voice in there sooner. Okay, so that is the remainder. Are there any discussion items? Member Johnston.
1F, I'd like to have a separate vote on 4A in its entirety.
Wait, say that again, 1F? And you want a separate vote on that?
On 4A.
Vote on 4A. I'm glad to put that in its entirety rather than separate.
Separate vote on 4A1.
4A.
Oh. We can just vote those all.
So 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, 4 all together.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, Member Johnston, 1F.
Sure, this is the discussion on which we used to call WADMs, and which we now call EPU, and we understood from management it's the same. I am going to hand out a sheet on this. I have some serious concerns on this. Again, we didn't get our packet until Monday, so we didn't have any opportunity to look at this. A few other sheets. Let me go to the end here.
I should remind just all board members and audience that we receive everything as soon as everything is mailed out on Thursday. It all goes online. And there have been issues with the Postal Service. Everything goes to Minneapolis, I guess, first, or St. Paul, and then comes back. So that does create a problem, but I think all of us can access it online. So there is no problem. Thursday, we can just read if we need to.
Sure, the biggest issue I have here, of course, is an awareness of the public that our enrollment, I'm using enrollment here, not the allotment, but the enrollment, which is the column on the left, is 8,365. Again, the best way for us to compare apples to apples on enrollment is to go October to October. So I went back the last 10 years. The chart I gave out to everybody is a 10-year enrollment in October. This year, we lost 228 students. This is the largest loss that we've had in over 5 years in students. It's the largest loss we've had since the initiation of the long-range facility plan. Again, 228 reduced students. Before I just say that, students go down as high in September and usually goes down as the year goes on, so it's very important to use the same month as you go from year to year. Again, when we look at the amount of money we get just from the state, it's about $11,000 per student. Again, we're at $2.5 million in lost revenue. That's somewhat reflected in the chart on page 21, where we have a negative net, and that obviously it's known. But why this is so important is 11,000 is $2.5 million again this year, and we are going to be short if we hadn't lost those students. If we go back 10 years, which is important, this has been an ongoing trend. For 10 years, we've lost 20% of our students. We've lost over 2,000 students in 10 years. And if you look at that money again just from the state, that's $23 million in annual revenue. Again, some people say, well, this is all schools are losing population. That's completely untrue. Duluth has went, and 10 years ago, we were the 13th largest school in the state, and we are now the 22nd. Again, this is estimated because our numbers aren't tabulated through all schools in 2015. In the same time period, students in Minnesota, all students in Minnesota have actually increased about 1%. Again, that's an estimate because we don't have all the totals here yet. So I'm very concerned about this. We thought that this was going to be bottoming out. We were hoping this was going to bottom out. Last year we've seen a sharp decrease going on in the last several months. People have heard me say that this is the situation. It caused a lot of consternation that why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up because this is how we bring revenue in. And losing students is not acceptable. Losing this number of students is not acceptable. And I think that people have taken notice. I was at a meeting on Monday with Representative Simonson. There's a question of what's the impact of, say, for example, Edison schools, charter schools going to have on us when they open up their high school. Well, the enrollment, the impact is going on a daily basis or a yearly basis. The decrease that we've had is ongoing. I think it's important that we as a school, we as a community, look at why we are losing students population, dramatic student populations, when the other schools, including the charter schools in this town, the Catholic schools, Marshall School, the neighboring schools are not losing population. And with that, I'd like to have some discussion by this board.
Member Harla.
In thinking about this and with all of the campaigning that's going on, I'm reminded again about the importance of the information that we're giving out in our community. And as we look at budget line items in the coming year, I'd really like to look at what we invest in communications on behalf of our district. I think Katie Kaufman does a wonderful job in the role that she plays, does amazing things, but one person for this number of students, this many schools, from a business perspective is not, it's not possible to do that much with just one person. And so we need to invest more in better communication, and also even with some of our classes could do some more presentations. But I think we need to be telling our story more often, especially with young parents that I'm meeting. I have a lot of very good friends that are choosing which schools to send their students to, and when I have a chance to speak with them as a board member, when they talk with other people that have children in the Duluth Public Schools, they can talk with pride about each unique school, and so we as board members need to continue doing that as well too. So I hope that in the coming year we look at an investment for that. I know we have a lot of things to look at, but I think we would gain a significant number just by continuing to tell our story broadly, and at least start an intern program that I keep asking about. We need communications interns with our great colleges and universities. So we need to do something, get our communications out there, and also just really be building relationships in our community. Thank you.
Student Representative Olafson.
Yeah, I'm looking at the handout that Member Johnson gave, and I'm doing the math, and judging by the $23 million, each student is getting a funding of about $113,000 per year. Is that how much we get per student?
Did you want to answer that? That's what you want. Okay.
Is that what you got?
I haven't done the math, but no, that's not what we get per student. It's closer to about $6,000 a student. I see Mr. Hansen has his light on, and I'm not sure if he was going to respond to that or something else.
I had a comment for another area, but I can confirm that the superintendent, we don't get $113,000. So, but you can come back to me when this discussion is over.
Thank you. So, Student Representative Olafson, you would like to continue, or are you done?
No, I'm done.
Okay. Member Johnston.
Yes, the numbers that we get about 11,000. That's the official number that we get from the state. The formula is about almost 6,000 now, but if you add everything else that we get from the state, you can do the numbers real easy. We have a budget of about $130 million. We have about 200 students, so if you divide that out, the total number we get from both state, federal, and local is about 15,000 per student. If you want to go at 15,000, that might be a better number than 11,000 if you wanted. Again, I was taking the lowest number that I could, which is a number which has been repeated, which is told us by the state. Again, this number is low. You're correct.
Member Harla.
I'd be interested in looking at the water projections. I know that APU/PU, I'm getting into the new lingo here. I think it's important that when we look at the budget, we have per student, but even what we get per student, we also cover a lot of services community-wide and region-wide that other area schools around us don't, even our neighboring charter school. And so the amount that goes specifically per student is less because of the broad number of resources that we are required to provide as a regional hub for schools. And so as we look at that, that's also important to take into consideration. So just thank you.
Thank you. Member Murneke.
Thank you. 4 years of the Wadham speeches, and we've talked about this. I gave a very detailed presentation about a year ago, and let's look at the year 2005 and go backwards. Let's go back to when the Duluth Public School System had 4 high schools, including Morgan Park and Central. We had 120-some thousand people in our population. We had an air base, we had a steel plant, we had Clyde Iron, we had Diamond Tool. My father worked in a railroad down in Northern Pacific Railroad down in Garfield with a number of neighbors. We had a large population. We were the 3rd largest city in the state. Long before 2005, long before the Red Plan. And we started losing people. We started losing population. Places closed, people left. The air base closed. That really hurt us. Up at Central High School, we used to get a lot of money from the federal government for that. It's been a long slide in Duluth, and some of you old-timers probably remember the billboard that said, "Last person leaving Duluth, turn out the lights." That was a real billboard at one time. I mean, we've lost a lot of population. The other thing that's happened is population's gone down. The student opportunities have increased, and that's not a bad thing. When I was in high school, or when I was teaching high school, I saw students leave their sophomore, junior, senior years because they could get their college education paid for by the state. We've seen a lot of students take that opportunity, and it's a good thing. I mean, some of them are ready for college calculus and engineering and all of that, and we lost that. Then the charter schools came in, and there are a number of them. There are online charter schools, and there's Edison, and there are others, and we lost some students to that. We also have, right now, an opportunity. Some of the kids have opportunities, again, to take online classes and work in their jobs. And so we've seen a decline there. I like what Member Harless said. You can look at this two ways. You know, you can be concerned. Certainly, I'm concerned about it. But we got to look at it in a positive manner. We say, all right, what can we do? You know, what are the things? Now, I tend to really be a positive, optimistic person. I do think, however, and knowing public schools across the state, we are seeing the competition for students increase like it never has before. Again, I go back to when Mr. Westrom and I attended Denfeld, and we had friends from Morgan Park. Morgan Park had over 200 seniors in their graduating class, 200 seniors at one of their graduating classes. Well, now it's closed. There aren't as many students. There are a myriad number of reasons why we've had our population decline. I'd rather not complain about it. I'd rather look forward and see what we can do to change it, be more optimistic, be more supportive of our district.
Student Representative Olofsson.
Representative Goossens and I have conferred, and we found the error in my math. The part that confused me was the area where it says the total yearly lost revenue has been about $23 million. So that led me to believe that we lose $23 million every year, as I read that. So that was my error.
Mr. Hansen, did you want to comment on something? Or?
I just wanted to make a couple of comments, Chair Saligapunko, thank you. One is that certainly declining enrollment is concerning, and we talk about it several times a year, but most certainly at budget time, because declining enrollment puts us in a situation where generally we have less revenue from one year to the next, and it makes it very difficult to add new programs as we consider options during budget time, and we've all been through those discussions together before. The other thing I wanted to mention is I did have, I've shared this information before, again, something we've talked about. I have an 11-year period from 2002-03 to 2013-14, looking at the number of resident students in our population. In other words, all of the students that live within the boundaries of the Duluth Public School District, and that number went down just under 1,800 students during that time. And it's hard to get more students when the students within your resident boundaries are shrinking. I'm not saying we don't have other issues to be concerned about, but that's key information that we should stay aware of.
Thank you, Mr. Hansen. Member Johnston.
I appreciate the discussion, particularly the discussion from Member Harla about what we could do to improve this. We want to look at ways to improving this and bringing this up, because first we have to acknowledge the issue so we can move forward and address it. I think it's important to point out that for the last three censuses, last time I said this, I also forgot what the plural of census was. Whatever it is, we have not changed. In the last three censuses, the population of the state in Duluth about 86,000 people. If you also go back for the last two censuses, you will also find out, contrary to what Mr. Hansen said, that the that the age of children under the age of 18, which are school-age children, has not went down any. That's according to the U.S. Census and the latest revision back in 2014. So those numbers are correct. Again, I want to remind people that we have lots of schools. As we've said, we all know we have lots of schools in Duluth, and none of those schools, including the neighboring communities, have lost students like we have. In fact, as far as I know, none of the charter schools or the Catholic schools or the Christian academies have lost any students at all. In the last 4 years, we've lost about 600. And it is an issue. I'm looking forward to having the board address this in a manner. This is something that is just not acceptable.
I just have to say one quick thing. Having a child who is now in college that just graduated, all the colleges are reporting that they are down in number of students. They're all kind of competing. So can I have Member Leffler-Kemp go ahead?
Sure. I just wanted to, as always, appreciate Mr. Hansen providing us with accurate information. And I also, I guess, just want to comment on kind of the discussion of getting out accurate information to the public to make sure whether it's new parents coming in or parents that are considering starting their kids at the high school level or middle school level, that we as board members, I feel it's my role, and I think it's shared by some of us on the school board, to be providing accurate information to our families about what we offer, what we don't offer, what the schools are offering all across the district. And while we only have one Katie Kaufman doing PR, I really see it as all of our role to be providing accurate information to our families. We all serve on a number of committees as a school board. As a school board member, I serve on the Community Action Duluth board, the Head Start Parent Policy Board, and other boards, and I see it as my role when I'm on those boards to be promoting our school district and encouraging parents to consider us because of what we do offer. And so I guess just as part of this discussion, I wanted to really stress that and that accurate information, whether it's here in the discussions we're having tonight or in the many different hats that we wear in the community, is really important.
Member Welty.
I do think this is an important discussion, and I'm quite interested in following where it's going. One of the things that I would suggest, and this may be, fodder for a new school board come January, is that we take a look at some of the information that we've just discussed here, try to nail things down so that we can all be comfortable that we're looking at the right kind of information and understand it. There are a number of things that I think we need to try to do. Perhaps this is just simply a demographic shift away from our population base with kids, but we probably don't do exit surveys with families that do leave the district. We have had a series of Think Kids meetings for the past couple of years. Perhaps one of the things that we could try to include there is get a little more feedback from the parents about what they want to see. I'm sure that's been a component of the Think Kids, but if we want to hold on to our kids, that's something that's important. And probably that sort of discussion would be much better at a committee of the whole or at the education committee or a business committee meeting at some point in the future, rather than just kind of riff on it at the end of a school board meeting where we haven't had an extensive conversation. So I would welcome more attention to these sorts of things so we can think our way through some plans to do that. I'm not convinced that just simply pointing out all the wonderful things our kids in classes do is completely sufficient. But I do think this is an important conversation, and I would welcome an opportunity to dive into some of the details at a lower level in the committee process.
Member Harla.
I just want to clarify a couple of misstatements. So, community-wide, I know that even though our population has stabled out, we've had an increase in a senior population, and they're not students in our schools. So, I want to make sure that that's out there. That if we have the same number, we have a higher number of senior citizens. They are not K-12 students, EK-12 or E12. The next piece is that we've had a few presentations this year, Member Welty, on exit surveys. Our administration's talked about that. When students are exiting the school district, they do as the best job that they possibly can. We had a number, I think we had presented 3 times last year. So just a reminder, we do have exit surveys. And then also at the Think Kids meeting in the beginning of every Think Kids meeting, there's that the quadrant section that the superintendent goes through that talks about what's working, what isn't working. I can picture the graph, but
positive, less than positive, intentional, unintentional.
Yeah, positive, less than positive, intentional, unintentional, and having been at a number of them throughout the city each year, a number of us have done that. Parents talk about a diversity of things that they want to see in the schools and things that they want changed, and so that is an opportunity. And so as we're out in the community, it's really important that we are doing that. And we've really been talking about this a lot, and look forward. I'm sure it'll happen month by month. But it's really important that as we're talking about this stuff, our administration is providing good information each month. We also are able to get that in the community, and however we can get that good information out is our job.
Thank you, Member Harla. Member Leffler-Kemp.
Okay, what was I going to say? I need to pass.
Member Johnston.
Yeah, accurate information is important, which is why I'm bringing this up, because it's so important. One thing that I forgot to mention here, which is actually fits right in with this, is that the decrease, 228 student decrease we've had since last October, the majority of that is in the lower grades, up to middle school. And of course, as grades move up, we were all hoping here a year or two ago that it looked like we had a good bump in some of the lower grades. And of course, as the lower grades move up, that populates our high schools. And in this case, the largest decrease in the population has been in the lower grades, which is not good.
Okay, we are going to, you remembered. Okay, go ahead.
I remembered. Sorry, I was at a very cold cross-country meet with my daughter before coming here, so I just had a brain freeze there. She did well, by the way. But I guess one last comment I wanted to say, and I really appreciate we have UMD students who are here tonight observing this meeting and observing our what we talk about as a school board. And in terms of the conversation about looking at our students and what are we doing to keep students, what are we doing to attract students, we talk about this at our Human Resources Committee, at our Business Committee, at our Education Committee, when we're talking about all of the issues that we talk about every month. Our staff, our teachers, our principals talk about this in lots of different ways in the work that they're doing on a daily basis in their schools. And so I think we need to continue to talk about it, but it's not that the conversations around what are we doing to attract students isn't happening. It's happening all the time. And I just want to make sure, particularly for the students who are here learning about what the school district is all about, you understand that as well. Thank you for being here.
Superintendent Gronseth.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with that, saying that in our region, if you look at offerings that schools are able to provide students, the Duluth schools have far more programs and more opportunities for our students than any of the surrounding districts. If you just look at the courses that we offer, the AP courses, the CITS courses, our CTE courses, and as far as activities and sports, and you look at the opportunities that Member Harlow was talking about earlier that students have the opportunity to participate in, and really are the best marketing tool, the best retention tool that we have is to have the very best programs that we're able to provide. Certainly funding becomes, a challenge. It's always a challenge when we talk about funding, both state, federal, local, whatever it is. And yes, enrollment figures into that. Keep in mind, enrollment is proportional. So we get more funding if we have more students because there's an expense that comes with educating each student. When we have a decrease in students, there's also a decrease in expense in educating them because there aren't as many of them. We don't need as many teachers when that happens. Now, that does create other issues. That creates some programming issues that we're not able to offer as much programming when we have fewer students. Now, I would beg to differ that Duluth schools, we don't have any small high school. 1,000 kids, if you compare the other 365 school districts in the state, a high school of 1,000 kids is still pretty large. I am proud of the programs that we are able to offer, and whenever I have the opportunity, I talk to teachers and staff and parents about the importance of sharing the experience that our students have, the opportunities that our students have, whether we're grocery shopping or at the track meet or on the side of the football field or in church or wherever we are in the community, to share those opportunities that our kids have. And the more we can build positive programming and make sure that our students are succeeding to the best of their ability, the better we will be doing. And that's kind of my, I guess, my soapbox for the night.
Thank you, Superintendent. Okay, we're going to vote on the entire business report minus number 4.
He has 4A1.
No, but he just wants separate vote. So minus that and the resolution. So we're going to vote on the remainder of that report. So all those in favor of that part of the business committee report say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Oh, you voted no? Oh, I didn't hear that. Okay, so I guess it carries 6-1. And then we're going to vote on number 4, the A1, 2, 3, and 4. All those in favor of those say aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries unanimously, that part. So did you get that, Member Leffler-Kemp? Got that, just that. We have no special resolutions, and we are going to be adjourned.